All right, good evening, everyone. Let's call the meeting to order of the Housing Planning and Development Committee for January 16. I'd like to move that we approve the minutes of the November 13 meeting of the Housing Planning and Development Committee. It's been moved by Councilman Shackner, who I believe is a committee member this year.
Yes.
So I'll note that there are new committee assignments this year. The Housing Planning Development Committee is chaired by me. We have Councilman Shackner and Councilman Baker, I believe, is on committee, which we had Councilman Shackner last year, but now we have Baker in lieu of Keppel, if I recall correctly. So welcome, Mr. Baker.
The guys with blue jackets.
Yeah. So the motion's been made and seconded. And I'll second the motion. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no, and the ayes have it. That motion carries. Let's now proceed to ordinance 39-2023, a proposed ordinance by Councilwoman Marks, who's with us tonight, to amend subsection 116103Z and AA of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances to include body piercing as a conditional use in the commercial zones, in commercial zones. Councilwoman Marks, would you care to frame up the discussion tonight? This is, I think, an attempt to include or clarify definitions to make sure that we have coverage of a category of business. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And this was brought up at one of the Planning Commission meetings by someone who was hoping to do body piercing, but it's not a separate, it's within an already existing facility. And so the law department felt it was appropriate to move it out of like the tattoo ordinance and more like the medical cosmetic tattooing. So it can exist independently in a facility. Is that correct, Sean?
That's correct.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Councilwoman. So the proposed, is this a new section? No, it's modifying a section. The proposal is to, if we go to the next page, I don't know who's controlling the screen. It's there on screen. Section 2, proposed new language, new subsection 1. Body piercing establishment is defined as a commercial business that uses instruments to pierce a hole, including but not limited to a lip, navel, or ear, and insert a ring, stud, or other ornamentation. That's new language that's proposed. Council members, any discussion? And we'd certainly like to hear from our planning director and our law director who are with us today.
Yes, thank you. The one question I have is in section 4, and the fact that it's under body art establishments, and it says a body art establishment shall not include body piercing. I'm just curious about the impact of that. So does that mean that, like a tattoo, I know we call them body art establishments, so a tattoo parlor cannot offer piercing? Or is that, I was confused by it.
No, the intention was, we regulate body art in two different categories. One is just a general body art establishment, and the other is the cosmetic, and I believe it's medical tattooing is the other section. So since we're pulling out, and the reason this has come about is our definition for body art is rooted in the Ohio Administrative Code. I think it's the Ohio Administrative or Ohio Revised Code, which in that definition includes the term piercing. So to pull that out, we're pulling it out, and we're going to put that into the cosmetic and treat it as cosmetic and medical tattooing rather than just general body art. So the intention with that section that was added at the end of the body art establishment was to mean that if you are want to do piercing, you're going to follow the cosmetic and medical tattooing, not that body art establishments couldn't also have body piercing. Generally, body piercing is an accessory add-on service that body art establishments, even medical spas, a lot of salons, even Claire's or retail establishment where they provide ear piercing. So the idea was to keep it as accessory, not as a permitted use.
Okay, so so this would not prohibit a body art establishment from offering piercings?
That's the intention.
Okay. All right.
Councilwoman Marks?
I think body piercing is kind of an inclusive service with body art, the tattooing.
Yeah, the intention is not to prohibit body art or the intention is not to prohibit body art establishments from also offering piercing. They can still do that. We are going to regulate it, though. We are going to regulate body piercing just as a conditional use, not with all the other restrictions that come with a body art. So if you meet the body art establishments and you've had a conditional use, you already meet the standards for a
Right.
body piercing establishment.
Right, I understand that. But just to clarify, this, number 10 says body art establishments shall not include body piercing. Wouldn't that be incorrect then? Because they are still allowed to do piercing.
Yeah, now that we're having this conversation, and when we went through this, the intention was to separate body piercing out of this section, because if you look at, if you go back a page, sorry. To where
Section
we
2.
were, the last page. So if you look under Z1, body art establishments meets all requirements regulating such establishments and services prescribed by the Ohio Administrative Code. That is where that definition of body art brings in piercing.
Okay.
The intention with number 10 was to pull piercing out of that definition. However, based on the conversation we're having, while it's doing that, it's also adding a layer of confusion because I understand your read on how you're looking at that section or that phrase.
Yeah.
If I may interject, is the concept here is that there's two separate business licenses and that the one doesn't grant the other? And if a single establishment wanted to do both practices, they need to pursue two licenses?
That would be correct.
Okay. So the intent of this new proposed subsection 10 is that, to clarify that a body art establishment is not licensed
You know,
on its own to conduct the other categories of activities. Is that, do I have that correct?
Yeah, and if I hate doing this on the fly, but I might have a proposed solution to it.
Yeah, well, is the original thought that you meant like in the definition of body art establishment doesn't also mean,
Yeah.
not like included within a body art establishment, you can't have any piercing within a body art establishment, right?
That was not our intention to
Right.
prohibit that from happening.
So it's just kind of a definitional thing.
It's a
you wanted to-
definitional thing.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think you could handle that by adding some qualifier at the end of 10, which would have the effect of saying, body art establishments shall not include like facilities that provide body piercing but do not provide, I think it's cosmetic, that are not cosmetic tattoo establishments or medical tattoo establishments. So like some combination of that, because that's what you're trying to say, right? Is that
Yeah,
that medical and cosmetic tattoo establishments can provide
I think it can be
body
simpler.
piercing.
Yeah. Could,
But
Councilman, if I may, thank you through the chair. Based on what Council Vice President just said, I agree, it is definitional, and I'm wondering if a simple change to number 10, such as the definition of body art establishments, and we'll capitalize art establishments. The definition of body art establishment does not include body piercing. I think that would remove the confusion and make it clearly definitional, but absolutely no prohibition on body art establishments from also providing body piercing.
Would we say, as defined in section Z or subsection Z? Or rather, 116103Z. So the new proposed subsection 10 would be body art establishments capitalized shall not, now I've lost the language.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, a solution might be to, between now and the general meeting, since this is the third reading, to like come up with, I think we all have the same intent here, which is to not limit body art establishments from also doing piercing, but we don't want people who just do piercing to have to get the body art establishment requirements in the code. So there's a way in which we can come up with, and we don't have a long agenda tonight, I don't think, on the floor, some language that we could all be comfortable with.
So I could meet with Director Vargo, and we could craft something, and perhaps section 10 shouldn't even be there. Maybe that phrase needs to be up in section 1, subsection Z1. We could just put it up there even to solve the definitional issues. So they're all right next to each other. But we can certainly do that.
Okay, I'm certainly, amenable to that, Councilman.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking maybe, like you said, in section 1, it could read, the body art establishment meets all requirements regulating such establishment service as prescribed by the Ohio Administrative Code, except for body piercing or something along those lines, because you're really pulling out the requirements that are for tattoo, body, whatever it's called, tattoo establishments, and not the piercing requirements, right?
It sounds like we've got an informal consensus. Councilwoman Striebeck, any thoughts or comments? Okay. Councilwoman Marks, any additional thoughts or comments?
No, I think that would be appropriate, because if I recall at the Planning Commission meeting, one of the concerns was they didn't want to have body piercing, have to follow all the regulations of body art, as far as from schools and parks and so forth. They can exist in a current business, like a beauty salon.
Understood. Wonderful. Okay. And we have no public comment on the agenda item, either electronically or in person. So unless there's any other discussion, let's craft a motion that captures the consensus here, and that would be, I think that we would move to recommend to the full council adoption of proposed ordinance 39-2023, provided that with the expectation that a floor amendment would be offered to clarify or to successfully embody the intent expressed in the committee discussion here, that that body art establishments are not precluded, but rather that we are making definitional distinctions here. It's a long motion. Motion's been made and seconded. Did we get that verbatim? We could rephrase the motion if needed, but it's a motion to recommend to the full council for adoption with the expectation of a perfecting amendment to be offered on the floor. Okay, so that's the restated motion, and that has been seconded. Any discussion, further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. And the ayes have it. Anything else? I think not. Okay. Without objection, the Housing Committee is adjourned.
Thank you.